own a tow truck company. I've always wanted that. I think we could make a lot of money if we had a tow truck company.
Yeah, just do AAA calls. Don't do repossessions.
I think of 3 trucks. Me and 2 of my friends.
Who do you think would be a tow truck person with you?
Well, my brother would definitely do it because he's already a truck driver.
It'd be hard. I mean, like, seriously, like, who would do it out of your friends? Like, all of your friends, like, own businesses.
I think what would be funny is if I got one of my gay friends to do it with me, and then he could just wear shorty shorts when he pulls up.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
I think that would be like a level of surprise and service.
That would be great.
That Chet in his 4Runner was not expecting when he broke down on the 5 freeway.
Oh my god, I would actually request the gay tow truck guy.
I'm sure.
I'd like.
See,
okay,
women would prefer that.
Oh my god, and we could talk, and if I cried because my car was breaking down, he would cry with me.
Yeah,
I would completely.
We'd make $1 million. We should just hire all gay tow truck drivers.
And they're all really handsome. So they get out of the car and they're like, oh my god, because they all look so good, and their like hair is so pretty. Oh my god, I would always request the gay tow truck guy. Oh my god, that's brilliant actually. Drop that business plan. That's a really good one.
What do we call it?
Sunshine truck driving.
Sunshine
towing. Sunshine towing.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.
Hey listeners, ever wonder what it would be like to sell everything and travel the country at the tender age of 50? Well, with our last kid off to college and the ability to now work remotely, we've decided to do just that. So we're selling the house, loading up the dog, and hitting every city from California to Florida. We're scouring the country for a new place to call home and dragging you into every restaurant, Airbnb, and tourist trap we encounter along the way. This is the Skip Town All-Stars podcast.
What's up, All-Stars? Welcome to another episode of Skip Town All-Stars. How we doing, Ethel?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. How's Florida life treating you? Hair's looking good.
Thank you.
Nice. Got your hair did?
Yep, I do.
Okay.
Florida's going great. It's raining right now. So, I love the rain. So for me, it's like, so nice. I don't know why. I've always loved the rain, but so it's raining right now.
Well, I'm glad you're enjoying it because I've done a lot of painting and cleaning and throwing things away.
Stop it,
I'm not really enjoying it, but
I actually have done a lot of work as well. So
I didn't say you didn't, but you're enjoying it and I'm not. So therein lies a difference.
Then you got to find something to enjoy.
I do have to find something to enjoy. So that's why we're going to talk about Memphis today.
Because you enjoyed Memphis.
I did enjoy Memphis because I didn't have to do any housework.
All right. Well, let's talk about Memphis then.
All right. We're jumping right in, I see. So when you last caught up with us, we were in Little Rock. Had a pretty decent time there for a couple days worth of hanging out. Yeah? Yep. And since you're such a big Elvis fan, you said...
I do like Elvis, so you just stop right now.
I love
you're being
Elvis.
Sassy.
No
and it
judgment.
Was my idea to go to Graceland. When we decided that we weren't going to do New Orleans, we changed up our trip a little bit. And I was like, let's go to Graceland. And it's only, I think, 3.5 hours or something like that from Little Rock. So it was a really easy drive.
Yeah. It was for sure. And we actually were able to find on rover.com a person to dog sit for us.
That's his new app now. Like while we're on the road, he found this app called rover.com and he finds people who will house sit Roxy in their home, house sitting. Yeah. So, so he ended up finding a gem of a house sitter. Like her house was insane, like insanely big.
God. We drove up to that thing.
Yeah, the backyard was, you said beautiful. I didn't get out of the car. But you said the backyard was really nice and Roxy did not want to leave.
No, Roxy did not want to leave later in the day. We pulled up to a house in Germantown, Tennessee, outside of Memphis. Really nice neighborhood. We're talking houses in the 600s and up easily.
And that's a lot of money.
It really did make me wonder why this woman wanted to. It made me. It is a lot. It made me wonder why she wanted $40 to watch our dog when she was living in this castle.
Everyone wants a side hustle,
I guess.
Whatever. Who cares? She's got
her
some,
old man told her like, hey, you better start bringing in some income so we can pay for this house.
Yep. And she probably made, how many dogs were there?
There were 2, I think.
All right. So
Plus she had her own. I can't tell which ones. When I go to these places, I can't tell whose is theirs.
Okay, so look, let's say she has 2 dogs every day and she does it 5 days a week. So she's making $400 a day. That's $1,200 a month. That's $12,000, $14,000 a year. So she's making
that totally does not add up.
Wait,
$40 per dog.
That's $80
per day.
I just said
so you just
$80.
said she's making $400 a day.
It's $400 a week. Okay, whatever. You know what I meant because I said $1,200 a month. So you knew what I meant.
I didn't
know.
So
$400 a week, $1,200 a month. That's around what, $14,000 a year. It's a good little hustle for her. It's like her freaking Target money.
Is that what women look for? Is Target money? I thought that came out of the house kitty.
Sometimes it comes out of the house kitty too.
It always comes out of the house kitty for you.
That is true.
All right. So anyway, I found a place in Germantown, and while we were there, we were already hungry because it was lunchtime. Yeah. And I asked her where we should go to lunch, and we were still on that barbecue kick at that point.
No,
we've been off for a couple of days.
Yeah, that's not true. You dropped Roxy off, and the lady told you about a place in Germantown called the Commissary. And you got back in the car and you said, hey, there's a place right down the street that this woman recommended, but it's barbecue, because you knew I was still taking a break from barbecue. Do you remember? I said I wanted a salad. And then I was like, fine, let's just go. And it was incredible.
It was insane. It was one of the best. And it was so good that we went there because we had the Texas barbecue. We've had
Kansas City barbecue, but not on this trip, but we've had Kansas City barbecue.
In the past, yeah.
Then we had Texas barbecue, Kansas City barbecue.
Yeah.
And now we were doing
Memphis
barbecue. And,
this place was nuts.
I still I'm in food heaven still right now. I mean, the bun it was served on, like, I think the bun is so important when you get a barbecue sandwich. Like any sandwich, the bread is always, I think, an important part of the sandwich.
Yeah.
That bun was amazing. And then the banana pudding, oh, forget about it. Like, okay, the banana pudding, usually crappy banana pudding, I've learned on the road, is just vanilla pudding with banana slices in it. You got the Nilla wafers at the bottom and some shitty whipped cream on top, okay? This, though, was insane. It was a custard. So it wasn't even a vanilla pudding. It was legitimately a banana custard with banana in it. Sure, the Nilla wafers were on the bottom, but the whipped cream was not crappy. It was really, really good. That was probably some of the best banana pudding I've had on the road. And I've had quite a few.
You have had quite a few.
Magnolia table was number 1 for sure. This was number 2.
It was really good. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to lie. Like from start to finish, our sandwiches, whatever I forget what we ordered.
Oh, I know we left potato salad.
I know.
Coleslaw.
Sorry. I know. I know we left there with like $200 worth of swag to send to all of our friends. So
you're taking that out because I didn't send stuff to some people. I didn't send anything to Lisa. You cannot say that. So sorry.
I don't know. I forget what we were talking about now.
We liked it so much that we ended up buying spices.
The slogan on the sign says, "It's so good you'll slap your mama."
How's it spelled?
Yo.
Y-O? Yo?
I believe so, yeah.
Mama, M-O-M-M-A?
I don't want to be, Southernist, but I'm pretty sure that's how they spelled it.
Well, it was really good.
I'd have to look it up.
Yeah, it was like, it was...
Would you have slapped your mama?
No.
It wasn't that good?
I just wouldn't slap my mom.
You just wouldn't slap your mom.
No.
I think it's just a figure of speech. So, but it really is good. Oh my Lord. It was so good. The barbecue was good.
Would you slap your mom?
No, I don't. Yeah, we don't do that.
Okay.
Nobody slaps their mama. But that's the point. It's so good it would make you do something crazy.
Oh, I get it now. Okay, it would make you do something crazy. I agree. It was that good. It would make you do something crazy.
Yeah. So anyway, so we enjoyed our lunch there. They actually got us in and out in such a flash because we told them the minute we sat down, we said, we have a 2 p.m. tour at Graceland. Are we going to make it? And he was like, I'll get you out of here. I got you.
Uh-huh.
So that was it. And he did have us, I don't know, I forget the guy's name, but he was an amazing server. Germantown Commissary. I think there's another one somewhere else in the city, if I'm not mistaken, or in that area, or maybe just in Tennessee. If you find a barbecue place called the Commissary, you have to go. It is nuts. It's so good. So we zipped out of there. We got to our tour.
Yes.
And we entered the gates of Graceland.
It was so great. Like, I mean, all the years my friends have gone living in Chicago, you know, so many people I know would take a trip there, and to be there was incredible. The thing I found the coolest really was that his house was on such a busy street. So if you live in Memphis, you work in Memphis, and you probably travel that road to get to work or to the grocery store or to a school, you're going to pass Elvis's house more than once a day. And to me, I thought that was just very, very cool. He didn't live like up in the hills. He didn't live in like, you know, a gated community way back in, you know, way back somewhere in a gated community. He has a gate on the front of his house for sure, but you can see his home from the street, and it's a busy, busy street. I love that he built a house there, or that he bought that house there. Not that he built it, because he actually bought that house.
Yeah, they talk all the time about how when he got a new vehicle, he would race it down the street, or a new motorcycle. There was one motorcycle they had where he could take like 2 or 3 people on it.
Oh, that's right.
A trike. Yeah. And the cops would like just watch him go by.
That's right.
Because he was Elvis. So that was pretty dope.
But when you enter the tour, you know, it's a whole thing. I mean, it's extremely well organized, but the tour actually starts across the street from his home. So it's kind of deceiving, because you enter the gate for your appointment for your tour, and you think you're entering the grounds of Graceland, and you're not. I mean, you think you are, because it's a huge parking lot, and the planes are there, and gosh, they have it all built up. I mean,
his cars are there, everything. The whole complex is there. It's an entertainment complex now. It's like,
oh, they have concerts.
People go to perform and stuff, like Nokia in LA. It's similar to that.
Yeah, it was very cool. I mean, James, remember you kept thinking the house was on the property too? Yeah. And I said to you, no, the house isn't here. And you were like, where's the house? I'm like, I don't know, but I don't think it's here. But you do, when you first walk in, think the house is there. But then you get on a bus and you go across the street.
Yeah. So first you sit through a little video presentation, which frankly, I feel could be a little updated. Elvis, if your people are listening, have them call me. I swear to God, I could help you out. That thing was somewhat dated.
It was, agreed. It should be updated.
Especially after seeing the recent Elvis movie, which we'll talk about in a second. But when we got on the bus and started crossing that street, because you can only get to the Graceland mansion via their buses, I was pretty excited. So
I was too.
I'm not going to lie. Like, Elvis has been in the zeitgeist for me, especially like as a little redneck kid growing up in Ohio, you know. I mean, he's just
my
huge.
Family had Elvis on Black Velvet, like, you know, my extended family. Yeah.
It was like the whole thing back then. So in the 70s. So we got to the mansion, took a few photos of us outside, and then we got inside, and immediately it's kind of, I don't know, you have to explain, because you know interior decoration way more than I do. Talk about the first room.
The first room was, okay, was it all pink? I got to remember the colors, because every room had a different color. Like, it was amazing. Like, I think the blue room was the dining room, and maybe the first room was the pink room. Yeah,
it's the one where he had his photo of his mom and his dad and the piano. And the piano. Yeah.
It was just beautiful. I mean, he was ahead of his time. And I know that is things that those are words that have been used about him before, but he truly was. And if you see the inside of his home, he decorated his house himself. I mean, obviously he had someone come in and help him, but
present ideas. But
it was him. Like, he picked the colors. He picked he picked like the theme of each room, and it was incredible. Like, he was just light years ahead of everyone in style, in music.
Yeah, he was really avant-garde. I mean,
avant-garde is the perfect
rings
word.
Of, you know, more modernly, we would know like what we think of Prince.
Oh, yeah. He was like that. He was such an innovator. So his house, every room had a theme. He even had a jungle room, and the rooms, like, some of them just had fabric on the walls. There was no paint, no wallpaper, and the fabric was incredible.
Yeah, the billiard room was pretty crazy. It was like folded fabric origami. I have no way to explain it.
Yeah.
What is it? Like it was all ridged and ruffled or whatever on the top, but it was like
you said
really,
it right.
Really like ironed pleated lines of all these different colors. The billiard room was insane. Like I can't imagine like hooping and hollering it down there with him, you know. Oh my gosh. It must have been like the times in that house, you know.
And even the TV room, like he had
that was insane.
Orange and like
the blue and yellow room.
It was just, there was, was it yellow? Cause I knew there was a room that had like oranges and stuff like that. But again,
that was a jungle room.
Okay. It was just very cool. So yeah.
So we got to go through the upstairs. You can't go,
no, you can't
go upstairs to the suite or anything like that. So we walked in
to the bedrooms.
We saw his sort of commemorative or his memorial room where he had like photos of his family and all that. And it was a very white sort of room. And then, like you said, we got to see the kitchen. The most fascinating part, honestly, was just looking at all of the appliances and
nothing's been touched
on that first floor. It was just like wow, it was a time machine. And you know, I grew up poor, so it's like my family could never afford those things, but it was like devices I had seen at, you know, rich people's houses or you know, in movies or what have you. And just to see it there, like he was always cutting edge with the technology. If you know, RCA came out with a new television, he had it. You know,
and if you think about it, like in the kitchen, he had a TV with cameras, like the property. Like he had a surveillance system basically. And what year would this have been? Like in the early 60s, he had a surveillance system. Like I mean, that's something that, like, you know, the FBI had, or like the CIA, and then, you know, Elvis has it.
Yeah,
it's kind of crazy. Nobody had a surveillance system, kind of like, you know, they have in prisons, but it was in his house.
Prisons.
You know what I'm talking about. That paints the picture. Like
prisons. Legend has it there's one person they caught on those cameras jumping the fence. Do you know who that person was?
Who?
Bruce Springsteen.
No, I don't believe you.
I swear to God, it's a story. Like Bruce Springsteen actually jumped the fence trying to like meet Elvis.
Oh,
back in the early mid 70s.
If Bruce
something
is
like
listening, he has to tell us if that's true.
But legend has it that Elvis wasn't there that day, and security promptly escorted him out. So obviously they found him. But isn't that a crazy story?
It is, but it's not, because he had such an impact on so many people. So it's like, it is surprising that Bruce Springsteen may have done that, but it's kind of not either, because he was a living legend. And I don't know, Bruce Springsteen, at the time, if it was in the 70s, he could have just rang the doorbell and said, "I'm Bruce Springsteen."
Well, he couldn't get through the gate. That was
he could have rang the gate and said, "I'm Bruce Springsteen. I want to see Elvis."
I don't think he was Bruce Springsteen at the time.
Oh, okay.
As we know him.
Oh, all right. But I think, okay, but I think there were probably many people who jumped the fence. It just happened to be they didn't turn out to be as famous as Bruce Springsteen.
Not all of them ended up being Bruce Springsteen. I think you're right.
Yeah.
And so then you go upstairs and you see the jungle room. It's got like fake plastic plants, and it's very, the carpet's green. And right?
Yeah, the carpet was green.
And then there was like tiki furniture or whatever.
And like the print in the jungle room looked like a jungle. It was green and like animal prints. And it was just, it was really, really just it was a feast for the eyes. Really, that's what it was. It was a feast for the eyes.
And so I read up on the jungle room just because, you know, there was a song, I think his name was Mark Cohen or something like that. He wrote a song called Walking in Memphis, and he talks about Pretty Little Thing waiting for the king down in the jungle room and all that. Mm-hmm. Anyway, so it was, you know, the jungle room is just so like the thing to see when you're at Graceland. Everybody wants to see it. So in my travels on the interweb, I came across this story, and I didn't realize that his last album, his record label actually allowed him, like they wanted him to produce another album. And it was at a time where we all sort of know how it ends for Elvis, right? I'm not spoiling anything, where his drug abuse had taken over and his alcoholism and everything. And he just wasn't in a good place, but they wanted another album for him. So they actually allowed him to set a studio up in the jungle room. So his last album was actually recorded in that room.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So then after that, we went out into the back. They show you sort of where the garage and his office, he had these huge metal desks back there, more TVs. He loved television.
He had a racquetball court. Do you remember that?
He did have a racquetball court. Yeah. And then, walking from one sort of small building to the other on the complex, you could just see this. He loved horses. So he had all these horses there. It was really, overall, it was a great. And then you get to the end, and that's where you see like where he's buried. I think both of his parents are there. Yep. And there's a memorial to his twin brother, which, I had totally forgotten about. He was the second one born, but they didn't know he was coming. And they were so distraught when his brother came out because he was stillborn.
Oh.
And they buried him in Tupelo, Mississippi.
That's right.
Where Elvis was born. So Elvis was born in Tupelo. And he was the second twin to come out. And so I think his brother's name is Aaron or something like that. But they have but they have a marker there as well, even though his brother's buried in Tupelo.
Yeah, right. He's buried in Tupelo. But then they also have a memorial for Lisa Marie's son. I believe his name is Ashley.
Yeah.
He's actually buried there.
Yeah.
His body is there. So it's like Elvis, it's his parents, it's the memorial to his brother, it's his grandson. They're buried there. So you can actually view it. And
it's not really a mausoleum because it's outside.
No, it's
What's
not.
it called? It's like a garden. It's the meditation garden.
Yep. That's right.
What it's called.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yep.
So anyway, seeing that and in general, just being there and feeling the vibe and everything, it not just took me back to my childhood, but it actually reminded me of a memory. I don't know if I'm pretty sure I told you this, but I doubt you remember it. But just like Denise wants to throw herself off of cliffs, I am very claustrophobic, and I turn into a cornered rat when I'm in closed spaces. I just don't like being constricted in any way, shape, or form. And that stems from the night that Elvis died. I didn't know, or maybe it was the night he was being buried and it was televised. I forget. But I saw it on the news, and I just remember my mother crying, just so distraught. So many people were unhappy. He was the king of rock and roll, And so, but for whatever reason, it gave me a dream that night that I was buried alive, which is insane. But ever since then, I've been claustrophobic.
You had a dream when you were 7 years old that you were buried alive.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I didn't understand, I had never seen, I really had never been to a funeral in my family until I was late teens, early 20s, something like that. So I had no reference point for a coffin. I'd seen them in cartoons.
So the first coffin you ever saw was Elvis's coffin?
Was them carrying his coffin, yeah. In my memory.
Okay, so in your dream, did you die?
I don't know. I woke up. I probably wet the bed. I'm not sure. I don't know.
Because they say if you die in your dream, you die. So that's why I'm just curious.
Well, maybe I died that night.
But then you're alive. So that really proves the point that it's not true.
Unless we're living in a metaverse.
That could be.
Which plays into all sort of Elvis, Bigfoot, Sasquatch, UFO theories.
For sure.
JFK, all that. So anyway, we're going to move away from that topic. But but it did remind me, my first memory of Elvis was not that, but my first memory of death was Elvis's death. So
that's crazy. I cannot believe the first time you saw a coffin was Elvis's coffin.
Yeah. I had seen them maybe in TV shows or something. I don't know.
My parents were the worst. They made me go to open casket funerals.
Oh yeah. Well, you live in Chicago. 5. People were dying all the time.
It's child abuse. I got to tell you, an open casket funeral when you're 5. No.
That's nuts. Yeah. I didn't have to deal with that until I was into like I said, I was probably 20 years old before I went to my first funeral.
Oh my gosh. That is crazy. Okay. Yeah. So Elvis made you claustrophobic.
Yes. It's all his fault. But I love his music. What's your favorite Elvis song?
Well, you were just playing Burning Love.
I love that song.
And I have to say, that is such a great song. I like Love Me Tender.
You do?
I do.
Oh, that's nice.
I don't know. Jailhouse Rock is great. I'm a sucker for all of his hits. Honestly, whenever, we've been at my brother's house and we're playing all kinds of music, and whenever a song of his comes up, it's it brings you back. And they are timeless in so many ways. So, I named a few. What do you like? What are your favorites?
I like A Little Less Conversation. That's my favorite song. I was actually playing that earlier today as well. I love that song. I was playing it last week. I always liked the song, but going to the recent Elvis movie by Baz Luhrmann, right? Baz Luhrmann. I mean,
that song is really showcased.
It really is showcased. And I will say, we're not really doing movie reviews, but we don't really do restaurant reviews either. And we talk about that shit all the time on the show. So, but let me just say that movie, from a fan standpoint, or just, I mean, our girls enjoyed that movie and they knew really nothing about Elvis because, you know, if an Elvis song ever came on in our house, they're so melodic. That's the thing. The melodies behind all of his tunes are so catchy. And, you just can't help but sing the words for like the rest of the day. But it wasn't really anything we had ever introduced our kids to. We're horrible parents.
It's so weird because we're both music lovers.
Yeah.
But like for some reason, we never introduced like the Beatles or Elvis or even Led Zeppelin.
Well, you don't like the Beatles, so.
I don't. It's true. But they are, again, innovators. They are I think the basis of rock and roll, really.
Yeah.
I mean, so for us not to expose them to it is a form of child abuse.
Well, they know Led Zeppelin. I mean, I've introduced them to Led Zeppelin and like AC/DC and stuff like that.
I know, but
Nirvana.
That's not the same
but it's like all more
timeline
recent.
as Elvis. So we're talking about music that's in Elvis's
we definitely
timeline.
introduced them to music that we grew up on.
It is true, but really we should have introduced them to the classics and we didn't. So Elvis was one of them that we never played in the house.
I know.
I mean, Ellie was doing drums with, you know, songs by Rage Against the Machine at 5, but she doesn't know an Elvis song. We've done her a huge disservice.
Yeah. We have.
Sorry.
She probably would have picked them up a little faster because they're simpler tunes, but they're so good and so catchy. So no wonder he had so many hits over the years. But going back to the movie, I mean, I was just so impressed, especially I feel like maybe 2/3 of the way in, it sags a little, and it sags because everybody knows how it ends, right?
Yes.
Which is, you know, unfortunate. I didn't know that he had never traveled the world. I didn't know he had never left the United States soil. I didn't know that. So.
I always wondered as a young person why he did Vegas, because extended family were huge fans of Elvis. And when I was a young girl, I would always hear them say, why is he still doing Vegas? Why? Like, he's too good for that. And then, you know, he became the butt of so many jokes about like playing Vegas. It was like, you know, like enough of that. Like, okay, I equate Elvis in Vegas to an athlete who plays in his sport too long. It takes away the credibility, the respect, the admiration people have when you haven't just said, okay, it's time for me to, you know, I don't know, not retire, but he shouldn't have continued to do Vegas. But through the movie, you learned why he did. And it was such a sad story.
Yeah.
You know what's surprising is that after watching the movie and going to Graceland, was learning that the family didn't really hate Colonel Parker. I guess at Elvis's like 10 or 20 year anniversary, there was a speech given by Lisa Marie, and she like had kind things to say about the Colonel. And I don't know, to me, that was just shocking, because from what you learned in the movie was that he really did enslave Elvis, and he was going to sue him or you know, for $1 million. And back then $1 million is like $20 million right now. I don't know. It's just a sad story. It was really, he's such a talent. He used him.
For simplification, he basically caught Elvis in a contractual loophole that prevented Elvis from traveling without also compensating, I think it was Colonel Parker and the record label, and I don't know. There was all kinds of
something
things.
crazy.
Like he would owe all this money.
No, what it was is you actually have that wrong. So what it was that Colonel Parker submitted a bill to Elvis for all the years that he worked for him and felt like he wasn't properly compensated. So for Elvis to leave him as a manager, he would have owed him $1 million. And then to get out of his contract, you know, with Vegas, I think he would have had to pay Colonel Parker's gambling debt. I mean, it was just an astronomical amount.
There was something, that's right. He didn't necessarily want to get rid of Colonel Parker, but
he did. Are you kidding?
Colonel Parker wasn't allowed to travel overseas because of some extradition law.
But he tried to get rid of Colonel Parker, and when he did, that's when Colonel Parker, remember they got in the car and they were about to leave Vegas, and then Colonel Parker gave him $1 million like tab and said, okay, here you go.
Yeah, totally.
See you in court.
Anyway, that was the back half of the movie. And that's not the part of Elvis that anybody really wants to remember.
It's just
to be
sad,
honest.
though.
It was sad, but I swear to God, the first 45 minutes of the movie is the best music video you will ever see in your life. I love the way that they cut back and forth from Elvis performing all the way back to like Tupelo, Mississippi, where he was starting out, and Little Richard was there, and all these other characters along the way that were real people. And
that influenced him and his music.
Yeah, totally.
And then they intercut modern music with the movie, rap music. It was really cool.
Yeah.
But back to Graceland.
To Graceland.
So was it everything you thought it was going to be?
It was better. I think it's easy when the person who is the driving force behind all the finances in a family suddenly expires. I think it's easy for the estate to fall into disrepair. I have a tremendous amount of respect for what they did to preserve not just his music or his catalog, but also like his legacy and the house itself. Like from every square inch of it, it was like, wow, it was better. Yeah, totally. I mean, I just found out so many other cool things that I didn't know.
I actually knew a lot about his life because I'd always been, I'm into pop culture. So even as a teenager, I would read stuff about, him and the divorce and, Lisa Marie. And I always kind of like would read about her too when she came up, like her many marriages and this and that. So watching the movie didn't probably fill in as many blanks for me as it did you, because I knew a lot about him, but being at the home, it really was incredible. It was just, I'll always remember it. Like people who've said to me, oh, it's an amazing tour. I get it now. I get why they loved it.
All the people that he actually interacted with when he was young that are like actual names.
I know that's crazy.
Like I didn't know that, until I saw the movie. I was like,
okay, that I didn't know.
Because most of those people he's accused of actually ripping off. You know what
true.
I mean?
Yeah.
Meanwhile, they were all performing together at some of the same venues.
Yeah,
so.
I don't know necessarily if that's counting as ripping off so much as it's considered influencing.
Yeah, it was kind of part of the movement.
Yeah, when you're all playing that same style of music,
yeah.
I don't know if it's really truly a ripoff or just, I'm sure there were artists that were influenced by him as well during that time. There's no one like Elvis though. Like you can try. There's like literally no one that's as talented and original.
No, he got arrested for playing his music. I mean, and we've known other groups that have done that over the years, obviously, or over the decades, but he actually had to go into the army to avoid, staying in trouble with the law.
It's true.
And and then he came back and
became a huge movie star.
He did. His movies are iconic and stuff, but they were really corny, and he was really feeling that. It was in that special that they did on TV, where the new producers were brought in along with the colonel who wasn't happy about it or whatever. But I think it was for NBC, and I think it was in 1968, and it was a special they did, and it just like totally exploded musically, put him back on the map. Like he was a serious musician again. He wasn't just somebody who had a bunch of great songs and then went off to be a movie star. So,
Are you sure of that date? Because that seems like, I thought it was more in the 70s.
I don't know. I think it was 68 is what I read, but maybe I'm wrong.
All right.
Anyway.
You could be wrong.
You could be wrong.
Doubt it.
Moving on to stuff we actually know. Let's say that Germantown Commissary and Graceland appear, other than Beale Street, which we did not visit, which I know was kind of a crime. But we did have to pick up the dog before 6 p.m.
Yeah, and that tour took a while.
It did, yeah. We took our time. We saw all of his cars and all that. We took our time in the memorabilia and going into the airplane. The planes were great. The Lisa Marie, oh my gosh, was so great.
Again,
his
an innovator.
Boardroom, yeah. He had the
amazing.
boardroom, his own makeup studio in there. Everything was crazy. So it was great. But anyway, we had to get back. There was no Beale Street in the cards for us that day. And you wanted to stop at a grocery store.
I did.
And
you said nope.
Yeah. And one of the reasons for that is people, I don't know if you're aware of this, but
we weren't.
Yeah. We avoided New Orleans because we said, well, we have too much gear in the car. I have cameras. I have all that stuff. And we have the dog. And we have to park in a parking structure and make sure that the hotel is safe in a safe area and all that other stuff. And boom, where do we go instead? Memphis. And guess what Memphis is, hun, in relation to New Orleans?
Tell me.
Even more dangerous. It's on several ranking sites. It's the number one most dangerous city in the United States. So
wow, that's crazy because I would think it would be New York or Detroit. I did not think it was Memphis.
It actually battles with Detroit, Baltimore, New Orleans.
I always forget about Baltimore. I don't know why.
Yeah, Baltimore.
It's pretty dangerous.
So I knew after doing a quick little search on bestplaces.net, I wanted to know, like, what are the best places to live around Memphis? And quickly things kept coming up like, do not move to Memphis, do not move to Memphis, do not move to Memphis. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so crazy. And at the time we were driving around Germantown and it was like, this place looks great.
Yep.
Like, what the hell's
and
everybody's
I thought maybe
problem
we
with
could
Memphis?
spend the night. And he was like, oh no, we can't spend the night here.
No, yeah. After visiting 3 or 4 sites, I decided we will not be staying here tonight.
I know. I remember you saying something. Okay. I'm learning just now that it's the most dangerous city in the United States. That I didn't know. But when we were in Memphis, I remember you saying something along the lines of, because when we travel, James will give me little stats about the place. Like, property crime is like only 25% here, but personal crime is, maybe 60%. So when we were in Memphis, he goes, oh, he's like, property crime he goes, personal crime is 80%. And I said, 80%. So you have an 80% chance of getting robbed.
85.7 to be exact. Go on.
So you have an 85.7% chance of getting robbed walking down the street. So then I said to him, what about being in your house, like property crime? And he goes,
81.1.
So you have just as much of a chance as being robbed in your house as you do outside of your house if you live in Memphis.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
A lot of crime in Memphis. A lot of crime. I want to do a deep dive. I printed some notes. Let me grab them real quick.
Okay.
Printed a lot of notes. Oh, you know what? Actually, though, I don't want to be ruffling paper. It's bad for the podcast. So I'm going to step out for a second and get the laptop. And Denise is going to sing you Elvis songs.
Oh, I'm a really good singer.
Or at least tell them an Elvis story.
I'm a really good singer. Okay. So let me think about a good Elvis story. I don't know. Like when Fill the space, hon. Fill the space. Oh, stop it. I can usually, I'm very talkative, but then when you're put on the spot, you're not quite as talkative. Okay. So Elvis, what I remember of Elvis growing up was all the crazy girls that would scream at his concerts, and like all my cousins that like would go crazy about like, how handsome he was and this and that. And, I was a young girl. So I was like, okay, didn't really put much thought into it. But then I got to tell you, when you go to Graceland and you see all the photos of him with like Priscilla and Lisa Marie and like performing on stage, my goodness, he was beautiful. And then also just watching the movie, that actor was, his resemblance was so uncanny. And it just, yeah, he literally had it all. He had talent, he had beauty, and he had brains, just like James.
Nice segue. All right, I'm back. How'd you do?
I think I did okay.
Just okay?
Yeah, just okay.
All of it, so. Hang on. Okay.
Why is the laptop better and not just the papers?
Because you can hear all the papers rustling. I'm trying to give our listeners the best podcast experience, hon.
All right, there you go. You're looking great.
My goodness. Okay, let's jump into some factoids, people, about Memphis. First off, on several different sites across the internet, Memphis is usually appearing in the top 5 in terms of worst crime in the country, which is really sad because
I would never have thought that. I just wouldn't have. I mean, there's so many other cities that I think are like Laredo, Texas. How does it beat Laredo, Texas?
Well,
That's
I
like
was going
crazy.
to ask you, so when I was reading off some of these stats to you, as I'm futzing with this, you recall being like feeling not particularly safe in Los Angeles before we left.
It's true. So I have talked about that with James quite a bit, that like I never shared with him the last year that we were there, how unsafe I felt. Like every time I got in my car, I just thought like, oh, I hope like there's not a stray bullet that comes through. Every time my kids got in the car, I was like, oh, I hope they don't get rear-ended and then someone pulls a gun out on them. Just things you think about when you live in a city and it's a big one and there's plenty of crime. So that's what went through my mind every single day I left my house. It was
And Los
awesome.
Angeles did not appear in the top 10 on any of those.
Okay. That is unbelievable. When he told me that Los Angeles was number 34 on the list of violent crime.
Yeah.
How is
those were
I couldn't even imagine living in Memphis then. But basically, when you walk out the door in Memphis, you could easily get robbed with those numbers.
Yeah. So, all right, everybody, buckle in. I'm about to drop some wisdom on your ass. Bestplaces.net nationwide average for crime, violent crime, is 22.7. In Memphis, it's 85.7, as we said earlier. Second only, I believe, to Detroit, which is 94. So
Detroit is leading in violent crime.
There are several different sources they measure different things, and I'll get into all that. But
continue.
Just straight up, Memphis is usually top 3 on all of these lists. So I bet the average is it ends up being the worst.
Yeah.
And in fact, the one I'm going to read to you in a minute says it is. Okay, then. So property crime, national average is 35.4%. So obviously property gets damaged or stolen or whatever, way more than humans do. In Memphis, it's 81.1. So you're at a huge risk of losing your stuff or getting your stuff damaged or being robbed or what have you.
Your car broken into, your house broken into.
It's almost
your backpack stolen off of your body.
3 or 4 times. Yeah.
Holy cow.
We weren't entirely reading the 85.7 factor correctly. You basically have a 1 in 41 chance of violent crime per neighborhoodscout.com in Memphis. So one out of every 40 people, but it's still like way up there in terms of other cities. Memphis is also ranked in the second highest homicide rate than any U.S. metro area. In 2019, there were 237 homicides reported. The number climbed to 327 in 2020. Mind you, this is during the pandemic. So
I was literally just going to say, wait.
LA, New York, all those cities dropped during the pandemic, whereas
Memphis went up?
Yes.
I wonder why. That's weird. Okay.
NeighborhoodScout.com has Memphis as number 2 worst behind Monroe, Louisiana, which I had never even heard of before.
Wow.
As does InsuranceBusinessMag.com.
So they have Monroe as number 1 and Memphis is number 2?
Yes, on those
Holy
two
cow.
sites.
Okay.
I didn't know much. And on a lot of these lists, we were correct probably to still leave to skip Louisiana for the moment, because Shreveport, Monroe, New Orleans, all these cities pop up. Like there are some lists that have 4 places in Louisiana in the top 10.
Holy cow.
Yeah, pretty scary. So according to a Fox 13, this is the local channel in Memphis, news report from July 15th of this year, over 3,000 cars had already been stolen in Memphis.
Oh, wow. That's a
lot of cars.
Holy cow.
Yeah. Surprisingly, for as little as we felt unsafe in Little Rock, it actually makes an appearance in the top 10 of several lists that I
would never have thought that, because I felt pretty safe when I was in Little Rock. Didn't you?
Yeah, we were walking around at night in the middle of downtown. It was like totally like, I mean, we're on the main strip.
Unless we're just like stupid.
Yeah, we could be stupid. But I had felt that way in New Orleans like 20 years ago. I quickly recognized I had walked down the wrong street in New Orleans. And I didn't have that feeling at all the whole time we were in Little Rock.
No,
so
I didn't either.
So I feel like I need to defend Little Rock a little bit there.
You know what's so sad about all of this is that Tennessee is such a beautiful state.
Yeah.
Louisiana is such a beautiful state. So those numbers really do it such a disservice. You know, people aren't going to want to visit certain areas of those states. Like we left Memphis so quickly. But what are you going to do?
What are you going to do? I mean, I'm sure it's
Not
safe
get
to
robbed.
say that. Yeah. I mean, look, if you know the tourist spots and you want to stay in Memphis for a few nights or whatever and check out Beale Street and enjoy the music and all that other stuff, you're walking back to your place, you're wherever you're staying. If it's on the main drag there, I'm sure you're totally fine. A lot of places that I looked on the internet said, well, you know, as long as you stay in the neighborhoods, they're nice. But then, you know, on Reddit, they were like, yeah, no, don't listen to that. Like, seriously, watch out. So, but I did find, you know, as I was doing a deep dive on Memphis, I don't want to just pick on Memphis. There are cities that you and I would never suspect are starting to creep up on some of these ranking lists.
Really?
That you would never, ever think of.
Okay, so tell me.
Terre Haute, Indiana? Yeah.
Get out of here.
South Bend, Indiana.
South
That's
Bend.
where
I know.
That's where Notre Dame is, right?
Notre Dame is in South Bend. I'm thinking Purdue. Wow. Okay. God, so many people from Chicago moved to South Bend. That's so weird.
Yeah. Well, that maybe explains it.
That could very well explain it.
Anyway, speaking of Illinois, Rockford, Illinois is actually making an appearance on several top 10 lists now.
You know what though? That's not that like if you live in Chicago,
I don't even know where that is in relation to Chicago.
Nobody really goes to Rockford. So yeah, I guess it kind of like, all right. I'm not, okay. That's not like huge surprise. Terre Haute is, I don't know what the heck's going on in Terre Haute.
It's got to be a meth issue or something.
You know what?
Opioids.
Yep, there you go. It's got to be a drug issue.
I mean, when you're
sure.
talking about those may have come, I just jotted them down as quick notes. Those may have come from like property crime lists that I was looking at.
Crime is crime.
Those two,
you know?
yeah. But those two are certainly not making like top 10 violent crime lists.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Well, you're right. Okay. Crime isn't crime. You're right.
Yeah.
I'd rather have my house broken into than being murdered.
Yeah. I think most people would agree with you.
Thanks.
Rockford, Illinois makes the appearance, but I guess not obviously, but evidently it has a huge gangs and guns problem.
Rockford?
Yeah.
Doesn't seem
I
like
know nothing about it.
Okay,
It
look,
sounds to me
I'm
like
sorry,
a Youngstown, Ohio
yeah,
type
gangs
thing.
and guns. Like you're hard if you're living in Rockford. Like
I don't even know where.
how,
like paint the picture.
South
What is
side
Rockford?
of Chicago is hard. Like Rockford, like how much of a badass are you if you're in a gang in Rockford, Illinois?
But nobody has any point of reference unless you know where Rockford is. I don't know what they're talking about. What do you know about Rockford?
All I remember Rockford, it's kind of industrial. Like that's all I really know about it.
So it's an old industrial town that just didn't last, didn't make the turn. Like Erie,
It's
Pennsylvania,
like
or Youngstown, Ohio.
Like it's nothing. It's like look, I am from Chicago, so no one really even gives Rockford a second glance. It's like, okay, whatever. Rockford, I think I should know this.
Where do the gangs hide if there's nothing there?
Well, obviously they're in Rockford.
Do they
now.
have buildings there? I know. Is it farm country? I have no idea what Rockford's like.
It's a city. It's not farm country. As far as I mean, as what I remember of it, it's more industrial. So my guess is it's more like a Youngstown and Youngstown, Ohio. And no, I mean, there might be some farm area. I don't know. Like it's been so long since someone mentioned Rockford to me, and I'm like 53 now. I have no idea. Obviously, it's a problem.
Anyway, those are.
I can tell you what Rockford was when I was a kid, but it's not that place now.
Okay. Well, it makes an appearance on several lists.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Oh man, people are going hard in Rockford. Okay.
They are. For sure. Safewise.com has, this is their top 10 list. Memphis, Tennessee, Anchorage, Alaska
What
appears
the
on
heck
so
is
many
going
lists.
on in Anchorage?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? There's like 10 people that live there.
Well, it's actually more than that. I think it's like 600,000 or something. Maybe I'm wrong.
What are they so angry about? No,
Well,
seriously. Like
I don't know
what?
they're
Anchorage, Alaska? Like why is there so much crime there? Is it drugs? Like it's got to be because like drugs always leads to crime. And Anchorage, no one ever heard of Anchorage. Like what? You knew
730,000 people.
Okay, more than 10.
So it's actually more than a lot of cities.
I can't believe they have a crime issue.
Yep.
I bet
do.
if you looked up like their drug problem, it'd probably be quite high.
Let's see. Crime in Anchorage. Okay, here we go.
But they have a meth problem. I bet you they do.
Anchorage violent crime is 50.9. Again, reminding everyone, the U.S. average is 22.7. Anchorage property crime is 61.8. The U.S. average is 35. So pretty high for a place in Alaska.
Really high.
Anyway, moving on from Anchorage, Alaska, Albuquerque, New Mexico.
That we knew. We already knew that. We've already,
Lubbock, Texas.
You know what? Jimmy told me Lubbock was like not a good place. He just told me lately, like when I was on the phone with him, he was like, "Oh, you don't want to go to Lubbock. It's
our friend Jimmy." For all you listeners out there who have no idea who Jimmy is,
they know Jimmy now.
They do. Little Rock, Shreveport, Bakersfield, California.
Oh yeah, I would agree with Bakersfield.
That's like total like meth cradle. Salt Lake City, Utah. Yeah, one of my top 5 favorite places to visit.
Tell me right now what it is. Is it property crime?
It's number 8. I don't know. I don't have it on this particular one. I forget.
I want to know what that is.
Here's how they did it. Well, let me finish the other 2. Springfield, Missouri, and Corpus Christi, Texas, where our oldest daughter lives.
Sweet little daughter.
Yeah.
We have her in a high crime area. So what you're telling me is you got this from a website that's listing the cities that have the highest crime in general.
Different rankings measure different things. Like when we get to Forbes, they measure the cost of crime.
Oh,
how much money it costs each city to deal with crime. So this particular one, which again is from safewise.com, when looking at crime rates and trends across the most populated areas of the U.S., we decided it made more sense to compare metropolitan statistical areas, MSAs.
That means Dallas.
MSAs include major anchor cities. So think Dallas plus Fort Worth.
So they put those 2 together?
Yes, for the sake of argument, because it's all the same area. So then SafeSmartLiving.com has one based on FBI database reports. So top 10 cities on that site with the highest burglary rates. Number 1, Bakersfield, California. Number 2, Vallejo, California. Lubbock, Texas. Memphis, Tennessee is number 4. Tulsa, Oklahoma. Oklahoma City, Oklahoma.
Oh, that's crazy because we liked it there.
We did. Lafayette, Louisiana. Springfield, Missouri, making another appearance. Spartanburg, South Carolina, which we had not heard of any. I had not seen. And then Shreveport again, Louisiana. Top 10 cities with the highest violent crime rates. Anchorage, Alaska, number 1 on this list.
Wow.
Memphis, number 2. Albuquerque, number 3. Detroit, number 4. That's the first huge city we've had on any of these lists, right? And that would be probably the city everybody would expect first. They would expect Detroit, Chicago, Los Angeles, and then fill in the blank after that. So not true. So all you people living in the metropolitan areas where we just ditched.
Maybe you're safe.
Yeah, maybe. Lubbock, Texas, Stockton, California. That one, I mean, I remember that since college days, like Stockton.
Yeah, Stockton's always been bad.
Camden, New Jersey, Youngstown, Ohio. Those were always like on the top 5 murder per capita lists. Little Rock, Arkansas, number 7. Wichita, Kansas. Corpus Christi, Texas, making another appearance. Gainesville, Florida.
It's one of the highest murder rates is in Gainesville, Florida. That's
Ranks
a college
10th.
Town.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
That was highest violent crime rates.
Okay.
Now we're getting into murder.
Okay.
Ready to do some murking?
Okay, let me just guess. Let me just do this. Okay, so highest murder. Well, it's got to be Memphis because you had violent crimes at like 80%. So I'm saying Memphis is number 1. Detroit is number 2.
But remember, I told you Memphis, when I was reading up the stats, Detroit actually had a factor of 94. So it's actually Detroit and then Memphis and then New Orleans. So really, we tried to avoid New Orleans and we ended up going to
Memphis instead.
City.
I know, but we didn't stay the night at Memphis.
Yeah, we did. It's fine. Baltimore, Baton Rouge, Anchorage again, Shreveport again, Albuquerque again, Little Rock again, and now Greensboro, High Point, North Carolina, which is just so many of these lists have like those 1 or 2 anomalies, and it really just comes down to whatever it was they were measuring, right?
Yeah.
So they're actually today, as I was recording this episode, if you guys go to Atlantic.com and do a search for an article called "The Murders in Memphis Aren't Stopping," it was so timely. It was written by David A. Graham, and I'm just going to take you through some of that stuff quickly to bring it back to Memphis. Jim Strickland was the first white mayor in 24 years. He has been there since 2015. launched a program called Reimagining Policing after the 2020 nationwide protests that went on across the country after the George Floyd murder. But by the time the report came out in 2021, violent crime had already risen, and not much of the report's recommendations were ever introduced, implemented. This mirrors actually what happened in San Francisco somewhat. The famously liberal city, this was just recently in the news, and there was a recall election for their city DA, whose name was Chesa Boudin. I don't know. I forget.
Did he get recalled?
Yeah. Yeah.
That never happens. You know that, right?
Oh, no. Well, it's happened more I feel like it happens a lot more nowadays than it did.
Seems extremely hard to do.
It is. The famously liberal city had a huge outpouring of support for alternative or defunding of policing. But when crime rates rose so dramatically in 2021 and 2022, they ousted this DA who was supposed to be this transformative person. But in the end, he didn't last very long. The side note is, after ousting Boudin, the traffic stops in San Francisco rose by 30% and public order stops rose by 20%. But San Franciscans have never actually made more public order phone calls to police. So the hint is that the ouster of this divisive DA alone, the cops hated him, right?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So just his mere ouster was enough to spark the police into making not random stops, but, obviously instigated stops
make
again.
More of a police presence.
Yeah, exactly. This is all part of an editorial blog at talkingpointsmemo.com by a guy called Josh Marshall. If you're not familiar with him, I've been reading him for years, and I actually happen to love his podcast he does with Kate Riga, one of the other staffers there. It's also a Talking Points Memo podcast. I like it because he's pretty honest about exactly what kind of criminals the Republicans are and how absolutely ineffective Democrats are in dealing with them.
So they both suck.
Yeah, exactly. So going back to Memphis, they've had this new police chief now that the mayor appointed. So this mayor that was elected in 2015 is still there. He brought in a new police chief last year whose focus has been on Memphis Police Department recruitment.
Okay.
Signs up all over the city. I don't know if you remember seeing them. I saw 3.
Actually do.
Yeah, I saw 3 while we were there.
We're hiring.
Yep. And in a poll from 2020, despite all the talk about defunding police and all that other stuff that especially right-wing media has used as a boogeyman into not electing Democratic officials, 8 in 10 Memphians overwhelmingly agreed in a poll with this strategy to hire more police officers.
Okay.
So we'll see what happens there, because right now Memphis spends $276 million on policing. And it's among the highest rates for a city of its size. So they have all that crime and they're number one despite all that money. So
that's crazy.
That kind of stinks of corruption a little bit, but I don't know.
And not just that. I mean, then you can go into there's so much poverty there. So
yeah, there is.
You can have a police force that's, 500 million. Crime is caused by so many factors that, unless people are making money and food is being put on the table, no one's scared to steal if they're hungry. It doesn't matter how many cops you have out there. That's obviously some of the problem is poverty and the drugs.
Yeah. Clearly, because despite all the plans this mayor has had,
right.
reimagining policing, new chief, all that money, and even 2,000 new cameras installed around the city called Sky Cop. It's just been a boondoggle in terms of money. And
wow.
Yeah. Violent crime has actually risen almost every year while this mayor has been in office. Since 2015.
Cow. Why is he still in office then? He's not putting a plan in place for people. Like, he's putting a plan in place for military, and it's a military city, military zone. What you're saying, there's cameras, there's more cops, there's a different police chief, but the people need help.
Well, I mean,
the mayor is not whatever. I mean, I don't
No,
live
let's
there.
bring it back
I don't
to
live there,
let's bring it
so-
back to Garcetti in Los Angeles, because that's what we're like. That's a machine that we're a little more familiar
but
with.
he took money away from the police department. He did the complete opposite. He didn't do
Well, the city
anything.
council, the city council did. They tried to do that.
Yes,
yeah.
but he was fine with it.
Well, he just sort of let everything happen as it happened. So we still gave him a lot of money. In his case, I think it's probably more mismanagement. I don't know. Unless there's some, but between him, this mayor in Memphis, it gives you the impression that either there's a tremendous degree of corruption or there's a tremendous degree of red tape and mismanagement. Because that money's going somewhere. Like $276 million is a lot of money for a city of Memphis size.
That's true.
That's a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
That's half of LA's budget, and they have a third
I'm
of the people.
surprised he's still mayor. I can't believe it, but okay.
Yeah, it's
so
pretty crazy.
basically, Memphis like hit every single list.
Memphis hit almost every single list. And then actually one that I left out, it wasn't in some of the other ones I read, but one that comes up so frequently, and in fact is number one in a lot of rankings, is St. Louis, Missouri.
Really?
Yeah. Like a lot of lists. And even on lists where like
That's so crazy.
St. Louis makes number one and then Kansas City will be number 8. So it just, again,
It was just what I would not expect that.
And then there was one that I wanted to point out just real quickly. I know we've gone down a rabbit hole with this, but Forbes cost of crime ranking, Salt Lake City jumped 26% last year, Chicago 29%.
Okay.
New Orleans 40 and Seattle 42. So basically it means that the crime, when someone commits a crime in these cities, it financially costs more than all the other cities. So
I wonder if it had to do with also like Seattle jumping 42%. They were really big on defunding the police also.
They were. They absolutely were.
That probably has something
I think
to do
the
with
cops have a way of just sending a message to people and saying, hey, okay, you don't want us to arrest people for this or that.
Why are they going to put their lives at risk? It
is a deterrent to do their job. I mean, it was horrible messaging on, frankly, on the part of the, I won't even see Democrats. It was just like the extreme left wing,
Yeah, it just made no sense.
Because in Seattle, they had that whole no military zone or whatever the hell it was called, where the NDZ, where they all lived.
I know. Here's the thing with, oh gosh, I don't really want to go down this. I don't. But like defunding the police in theory, the title's terrible, but in theory, you understood what it meant. It was like, okay, less police force for, people with mental illness and more like counselors or mental illness experts on the ground, because the truth is police officers aren't equipped to handle someone with mental illness anyway, and it should not be their job. That's not what they went. They're not trained for that, and they shouldn't be trained for that.
We need them for so many other things, and
100%.
And frankly, they want to do their actual job instead of babysitting people who haven't been babysitted by the appropriate family members, institutions,
Correct.
Whatever.
So the thought of defund the police was more of, let's put proper professionals on the ground instead of having police officers do this. But so it sounds great in theory, right? Like, okay, if you have like mental health experts on the ground with police officers and police officers who actually do their job, that is not how it worked at all. We live in LA. We saw how it went down. People in Seattle, 42% now increase in violent crime. Cost of crime. Cost of how much it increased, 42% of how much it costs the city with the increase in crime. So it clearly didn't work, because did the mayor not implement the proper resources? Like it fell apart somewhere, because it always is great in theory. Like in theory, you can say, oh, this is how it should work. But actually making it work is another story altogether. So in theory, great, let's let the police do their job and let's put professionals on the ground to help people who have mental illness. But that did not work at all. It completely failed.
The messaging was off from the beginning. It was basically like, let's partition out some public disturbances to a department that can actually handle
but there never was set up.
Problem. Yeah, of course they weren't set up, and it was going to take time. But when you jump, 10 steps forward into a slogan that says defund the police, you're an idiot. I'm sorry. I'm never going to vote for that. So,
I agree with you.
And, thankfully.
I come from a family of cops. I totally agree with you. I thought it was insane. I thought, again, the theory was great. Don't defund the police, but but add another department that can handle mental illness problems, or let's do something for people who are on drugs. Yeah. I don't know. I mean, like, police should not be dealing with that. They just shouldn't. You know what police should be dealing with? If someone breaks in my house, I want them at my house in minutes, not me on hold and them saying, oh, we'll be there in an hour because they're dealing with some homeless person. Like, they should deal with crime. That's what police are trained for.
Yeah, and somebody who's just causing a public disturbance because he's mentally ill or strung out or whatever.
Like, he needs other help, and I'm all for that.
A shop owner who just wants the sleeping guy on his stoop to leave so he can open up for business today should not be something the police have to deal with.
No, that should be somebody from like a shelter in the local area that comes and gets that person and brings them to a shelter. Like, they should be taken care of. We have in LA, there's plenty of money. There should be plenty of resources.
Yeah. Now, one point of reference that I want to give you is that when we eventually make our way back to Oregon, we're going to be stopping in Eugene to talk to our friends, Jarrett and Suzanne, who have lived there a long time. They left LA. They were skip towners way before we were.
They were.
Before it was cool. Mm-hmm. And
they did it with young kids.
They did. And I was actually speaking with Jarrett, and he says they actually have a department like the one we're talking about now in Eugene, Oregon, where one or two representatives from one of these community departments will show up in certain, when the dispatch gives a certain call over. So, and they'll be the ones who actually engage with person X before the cops are called in. There may be a cop on staff, but like that cop is not the one that's like overseeing like a mental health problem or mental health call. And in a town like Eugene, I don't know how many residents are there because I know the university is there, so it's quite large, but it might be more manageable. In a city like LA, a city like San Francisco, a city like Memphis, it clearly doesn't work. Well, because they're not putting the proper parties in place, or maybe the city is too large. Well, I don't know. I mean, you can't say it doesn't work because it hasn't been implemented. So you think it's been implemented? I don't know. I know it's been implemented in Eugene because my friend told me that. I know. I'm saying I'm not saying it's ever. It's not. It hasn't been implemented in. They LA. Said it was that when they defunded the police in LA, their whole thing was we're going to have mental illness professionals on the ground with the police. Have you ever seen one in a shirt? I never have. Okay, never. So that's my point. It's never been implemented. Okay. Anyway, let's talk about a happier subject. The safest cities. Okay, let me guess. For the according to Insurance Business Mag, per 100,000 residents. Okay, Albany, New York has to be on that list. It is not. Keep guessing. Asheville. Nope. Savannah. Nope. Charlotte. Nope. You're guessing a couple in North Carolina, though. So hold on. You're guessing a few in North Carolina, so I'm just going to give you a freebie. No, I'm going to give you a freebie. There's got to be one in like Wyoming. Sheridan? The only one in North Carolina is a place called Cary, North Carolina, C-A-R-Y. I've never heard of it, but it's one of the safest, top 10 safest. Is the Villages on there? It's not. Huh, okay. So let me enlighten you. Top 10 safest cities in America. 5 are in California. Wow. Torrance, Santa Clara, Glendale. Oh, Glendale, of course. Glendale, we know Glendale. It's in LA County. Uh-huh. When they say speed limit 25 miles per hour, they do not mean 26. They do not. Sunnyvale and Santa Clarita. Oh, I believe Santa Clarita. Santa Clarita, they are hardcore up there as well. They don't fool around. Been to a lot of soccer games up in Santa Clarita. Any speeding tickets? No. Because I know better. I know better. No, I only get those in Oklahoma. And Moore Park. And Santa Monica and Beverly Hills. And so 4 are in Texas. 4 of the safest cities are in Texas. Yes. Is Abilene? No. What? Frisco, McKinney, McAllen, and Plano. I don't know. We didn't go to any of those. No, we did not. Okay. I wonder if everyone leaves their doors unlocked.
No, seriously.
I don't think anybody does that. And maybe, I don't know, people say their towns, they can do that. I don't know why you would, because like the drug epidemic is so rampant in the United States. Like Joey down the streets all hopped up on trucker meth now, you know?
Yeah, I wouldn't leave my doors unlocked. I don't care.
So it's like, even if you feel completely safe, that doesn't mean you're going to leave your house open.
People do.
For all your stuff to get robbed.
People do.
Well, it's just stupid. It's 2022. So anyway, but the big, for me, the big
reveal
there is 5 of them are from California, heavy blue state. 4 are from Texas, heavy red state. Both have equally different ways of dealing with things, right?
Yeah, that's true.
And then you have North Carolina, which is I know it usually trends red, but it's kind of a purpley state, depending on where you're voting.
Torrance is kind of surprising. That one.
It was kind of surprising.
Yeah.
I thought that, wasn't there a
Mm-hmm.
murder there recently? I don't know. But like one murder does not a statistic make, but
no, it doesn't. I was gonna say, okay, they had one murder.
Anyway.
But Torrance is very, very busy. Lots of people. I would never think of that as one of the safest areas in the United States. Wow. Well, I just learned something. Thank you.
You did.
You are a wealth of knowledge today.
I had to break out the laptop to provide it all, but yeah,
But you had it all.
Really nerded out on all this stuff.
You went down a rabbit hole.
I did. I just feel like, we talk a lot about, we wouldn't live here because it's this, or we wouldn't live there because it's that. And it's like, well, let's see if the statistics back up what we're saying. And
it doesn't.
We're telling people to go to Little Rock and Memphis. Well, we didn't
Little
tell
Rock
people
and Oklahoma City, and Oklahoma City was on that list.
Yeah.
And LA was not on the list at all.
I know.
And I felt so unsafe in LA. So I think that makes me a pansy.
I think that makes you an old lady, because old ladies get scared when they hear the news.
I'm scared.
Anyway, all right. So that's pretty much the wrap up on Memphis. We went to stop at a grocery store, and Denise was like, "You think we should just get sandwiches or something like that?" And I was like, "Yeah." And then we started pulling the parking lot, and we were like, "You know what? This is a stupid idea. Like, I have no idea where we are in this city. It's just, let's get out of here." I'm sure it would have been fine. We would have got our sandwiches.
You might have gotten robbed coming out.
Maybe.
You had an 81% chance.
I guess so, but that's not actually how you do that. We were doing that wrong, but that's not the way way you crunch that data.
It sounds right to me.
Yeah. Okay. Well, nobody's going to fact check us, because, it's not like we're authorities on this stuff. So anyway, we decided to leave Memphis after that, and we knew it early on that we were heading to Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
We did. And so tell everyone why we went to Alabama.
Well, we decided Tuscaloosa might be a good place to hit, because I think we went to Memphis on a Wednesday. We were going to try and get a hotel on the fly on the way to, am I boring you?
No, I'm so sorry. Go ahead.
We were trying to get a hotel on the way to Tuscaloosa, and quickly found out that because there was a Bama game that weekend, we were getting blocked out on hotels.
Yeah, we could not get a room to go to the Bama game. And so if you've been listening to our podcast, you know that James is a huge sports fan. And I know just from being with him that Alabama is a big college football community. And so I said to him, well, we have to go to Alabama, college, university, and go see a game. And
University of Alabama.
Yeah.
Technically correct.
Okay. Yeah, that's it. And so he was like, okay, but unfortunately we couldn't get a room anywhere. I did not realize that stadium holds 100,000 people. And then it wasn't until we arrived that I really understood why we couldn't get a room. So when you get to Tuscaloosa, it is in the middle of nowhere. Like you hear that, you'll say, oh, this college town is in the middle of nowhere. No, this is really in the middle of nowhere. He was sleeping. I was driving. I was like, I'm going to hit a deer.
I mean, looking
I really
out,
was scared.
I just saw trees
I was going to hit
everywhere.
a deer. Yeah. And I was like, when are we going to approach this town? It was hours and hours. And then there it is. So the entire town, I think, shuts down when there's a Bama game. It was incredible. I'll let you tell the rest.
Okay. So we crashed.
For Thursday because we couldn't get a room Friday night.
Well, you looked at Airbnbs, but they were all like $700 a night.
Oh, easily. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is just ludicrous. I'm not paying that much to stay in
I still
Dubai, let alone Tuscaloosa. So,
But here's the thing, and we were going back and forth on it. I would have bit the bullet and stayed and paid an exorbitant, whatever amount for a hotel room. I don't know if it was so much that we couldn't get a hotel room if they were all booked, or they were like $500 a night. And he just didn't want to do it. For me though, I'm like, when are you ever going to go to a Bama game? Like that's a thing. Like it's a big college football community. When are you ever going to go? And he's never going to go. So it was dumb. We should have just stayed.
I think saving $700 was actually smart. So
okay.
But
it's an experience.
We part company there.
It's an experience you're never going to have.
I know, but I'm not an Alabama fan per se.
But aren't you a college football fan?
Yeah, totally. 100%.
Okay, then you're not a college football fan if you left.
Okay, well, it's not the mecca of college football for me. So that's the shoe in Ohio. But
all right. You paid $700 for Ohio State game?
I might have, yeah.
Oh, okay. Then okay, fine.
But it's like, I want to see Alabama. I mean, that's just ridiculous. It's gouging. So, but whatever. I mean, the people are getting it. So if they want to get it, if you want to, look, if you came down with 6 of your friends and University of Alabama is your alma mater and you could all crash in an Airbnb for $700, it's $100 for the night. So it made total sense. It made 0 sense for us on our little road trip.
I just figured that you were a big football fan, so you should enjoy it, but you didn't want to.
What, you saying I'm less than a man because I didn't want to go see Alabama?
No, I'm saying football fan.
You're really
I said
sticking
football
to it.
fan. That's all. I was just shocked that you didn't want to do it. So, okay.
So you would have paid $700 for XYZ that you wanted, like that you thought you should see. You wouldn't have done it. You're being a little bit of a hypocrite here.
I got to think about it.
Never done it.
Honestly, because
you would have said, I won't do that just out of principle.
Maybe.
You totally would have.
I don't know.
What are you talking about?
Like there are things that like I really would, for the experience that I'm never going to have again. Maybe like, you're never going to go to Alabama. You're never going to drive to Tuscaloosa in the middle of the night or day and drive hours and hours in the middle of nowhere.
I know, but like the game that weekend, they were playing like Sister Mary Butter's School for the Blind or something like that. And I was like, why am I going to pay like $3,000 to take you to this game?
Oh yeah, no. That's ridiculous for sure. But I thought maybe if it was like $1,000 for tickets and the room, then
if it was
like
a national championship game or the playoffs or the Super Bowl or something, yeah, I'm blowing that money. There's no question.
Okay.
But I'm not just doing it on like a random Saturday.
Yeah, but you know that you're never going to go and see them.
It's going to be like the Baylor game all over again. So how do you know I'm never going to go? Maybe I'll go. Like we're going to visit we're visiting the whole eastern side of the country. Like we're starting to do a run. It's like, you never know. Like you don't know where we're going to end up living. I don't know.
Okay.
I would rather go see the Yankees at Yankee Stadium. It's seeing the Cubs at Wrigley. You know what I'm saying? It's like, sure, yeah, I get it.
I get it. I totally understand what you're saying now. I just thought like, wow, a missed opportunity.
I'm not like, woohoo, Roll Tide Roll has never come out of my mouth. So why would I spend $1,500?
Just because it's a famous football college.
Think about what you're saying.
It's a famous football college you're never going to visit.
$1,500. Is it that famous?
You tell me, you're the football fan.
No,
okay.
I told you no that night. No, it wasn't that famous to me.
Okay, perfect.
So it's like, I don't know how more to say it. It's like, it doesn't make me any less of a football fan because I'm budget conscious. It's like, I'm not going to that stupid game,
Not worth it.
No. Then it was like the second game of the season.
So we just went there to spend the night and look at the campus.
We went there because we had to divert from New Orleans and we didn't have... Our other option was Shreveport.
Oh yeah. Okay. I'm glad we didn't go
Okay.
there.
Now does your memory come back?
Uh-huh.
Okay, good.
All right. So tell them about like what happened after.
I wanted to leave a town with both of my kidneys. That's why we stayed in Tuscaloosa.
And you did leave that Hilton with both of your kidneys.
I did. And those people were very nice.
They were. That was a good breakfast. But they did not come
down on their rates because I checked again. So
and it was a really good breakfast.
Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about
let's talk about Alabama football. So we woke up the next morning since
I learned a lot going back in that short amount of time.
Speaking of being a fan. Okay. So when you see Alabama and the trees and the rolling hills and all that stuff, it's a lot of rural environment and there are no major there are no professional sports in Alabama of note. I mean, there is not an NFL team. There's not a baseball team. There's, there's no NBA. So naturally Alabama is the thing, especially in the fall, and people get really excited about it. And you know what? They have damn good reason to be, because no matter how you want to quantify who the best coach in college football of all time has been, Alabama has both of them. So Paul Bear Bryant won the most games there. He has 6 national championships. I think he won like 360 games or something like that. And using the other metric of which coach has the most national championships, Nick Saban also has 6 national championships from the University of Alabama, except Nick Saban has another national championship he won at LSU. So depending on it doesn't matter how you look at it, football is religion in Alabama. And being there and driving through the campus, we woke up, we drove through, and it was a Friday morning, and they already had like 1.5 miles worth of really glitzy, nice tailgate tents.
It was amazing. Like I was so happy that we drove through the campus, even though we weren't going to the game, because I saw firsthand how serious like a real football college town is. Because I've never been, to Oregon to see the University of Oregon. They're a big college town. I've never been to, like Notre Dame. I mean, I'm talking like I've never been to Gainesville, Florida State, right? Like, isn't that University of Florida? Which one's really big? University of Florida.
Florida State's in Tallahassee.
Okay,
Florida's
Tallahassee.
in Gainesville.
Okay. So Florida State, isn't that the big college football team? Who's the big college football team?
Well, there are two.
Which is the one?
I think Florida more recently has been a more successful program.
So I personally have never been in any of those big college football towns to experience it during football season or any time. So to drive through there, holy cow, it was like out of the movies. Seriously, like, first of all, Alabama looks like it was in Legally Blonde. Like, if you've seen that movie, it's like she was walking around. It was like the campus of Alabama, which it wasn't. It was Harvard, it was supposedly in the movie. But in any case, it's everything that you think. Like, their Greek row, their buildings looked like libraries.
Yeah, they
like
did.
It was insane.
They take the fraternity and sorority stuff very seriously.
Holy moly. And then,
like in the South, like girls are groomed to like be Delta Gamma,
blah, blah, blah.
or whatever.
Yeah.
From a very young age.
That's true.
She has to get in. She's a legacy,
Yeah. And then
that's my Southern white mom voice.
Do that again.
She has to get in. She's a legacy.
Well, that was really good.
Does it sound good?
It sounded very good.
All right.
Okay. So then to see all the tents set up and the canopies for them getting ready for the football game on Saturday. Oh my gosh. Like, when I think tailgate, I think like a cooler from Walmart in the back of someone's truck with some folding chairs and parking lot.
Yeah. You think a pop-up tent and like some Buffalo Bills fan jumping on a Costco table.
This was not that.
No. This was serious business. You better be dressed to impress when you show up to these tailgates. They are not fooling around in Alabama.
And what I was thinking the whole time is like, they do this for every home game. Yeah. Like these were party rental trucks. I'm like, they do this for every home game.
Yep. So between that and church, I mean, that's the deal.
That was cool. I gotta say,
it was cool.
It was fun.
The stadium was impressive. I could not be a college.
You could feel the energy.
I could not imagine being a college student from another college rolling up in the bus and seeing that stadium. It is daunting. They have the elephant out front, the huge statue. They have Bear Bryant, a statue of him. It's basically, we compare football players to gladiators and stuff like that. But I could tell you right now, especially as an Ohio State fan where they whipped our ass so many times, like, did you know Alabama has won 5 of the last 10 national championships?
I did not know that.
They have 75 players currently in the NFL.
Oh, that's crazy.
Yeah,
okay.
That have been
so it's
drafted
a machine.
into the NFL.
It's like they just churn out professionals.
It is a war machine. There's no question. And they are just churning out, win after win. Like, I think they're down a little bit this year, but they're never totally out of it. And then boom, the next thing you know, they're in the playoffs,
Got it.
So all that to say, like, rolling up to that stadium, I would be a little intimidated if I were from, West Lafayette Tech. You know?
Okay. So I have a question. When we pulled up to the stadium when I parked, were you like all kind of giddy inside?
Yeah, totally.
Were you? Okay.
Yeah.
I actually watched what everyone was doing. The kids
There
all
was
walking
plenty
the
of
campus.
buzz.
Yeah, there was a lot of energy being there. It was fun. I really enjoyed it. I was like, wow, this is so cool. Like being a student here.
Yeah. And that was it. And then after that, we split town and
we skipped town.
We skipped town and we started heading toward Florida. I think the only other thing of note in Alabama is we stopped at that farmer's market somewhere. Remember that farmer's market?
That farmer's market sucked. Even the ice cream sucked.
But you bought like all kinds of like
jellies and jams
and
pumpkin
butter and
I did
shit
buy
like
pumpkin.
that.
Yeah. And those were all really good. But everything else I didn't care for. I did get pancake mix that I thought was terrible. But go ahead. I made my brother and sister-in-law eat it. I don't think Vicky ate it, but I did make Ron eat it. Did you have some too? I think I forced it on you as well.
It was more like a biscuit.
Not good.
It ended up being a maple scone.
It's true.
All right. Well, I guess it's not noteworthy then. So strike that from the record, people. I guess that sums up our experience in Memphis and our experience with crime and what we thought we knew and what we didn't know about some of the places we visited.
We know nothing.
We know nothing.
This proves
Why
it.
are you even listening to us? We're dumb as a bag of nails. All right. So
we like barbecue.
We'll go anywhere for barbecue, even if it means getting shanked.
Yep, exactly.
Anyhow, we're going to wrap up this episode. Thank you so much for listening. And as always, if you are interested in a virtual mailbox service, I can tell you there's no better app to have on your phone than Anytime Mailbox. For a few $100s every year, you can have the peace of mind of having your mail opened, scanned, recycled, shredded, forwarded, whatever you want it to do for you. And it's totally up to you what you do with each and every piece. I can't say enough about the service. So go to skiptownallstars.com/anytime and click through there and find out everything you need to know about Anytime Mailbox. They are our first corporate affiliate partner on the show.
That's awesome. Yeah.
Congratulations. We're big people now.
We are.
I know.
We have a virtual mailbox and
Feels so important.
And a corporate affiliate.
We have a corporate affiliate. We are a corporate affiliate.
Is that a word?
Affiliate?
I don't know. Is that a word? Did you just make that up?
We're hot shit.
There you go.
Anyway, that's enough for this week. Take them out. Yeah.
Oh, you always catch me off guard. Stop it. Empty nest?
Oh.
Tank.
You forgot.
I did not. You just caught me off guard.
Later.
Check the mic and make sure it sound right, boys.